do mnie, tutaj na scenę, gościa honorowego Europejskiego Forum Gospodarczego Lodzkie 2009, pana Michaela Reagana.
Thank you. Calling Reagan. Okay. Yeah. By the way, 34 years of marriage on Saturday to Colleen Reagan. And that's not easy to do when you live in California and Hollywood. They don't believe in staying married for 34 minutes. So to be 34 years is very good. And by the way, a born and raised Democrat from Nebraska who moved to California and met me on a blind date, and the rest, of course, is history. It is such an honor and a privilege to be here tonight and to be able to meet and to be able to speak to all of you tonight. Marshall, honored guests, thank you so much for allowing me to join you here at this auspicious occasion and dinner in this economic conference. You know, I've been now here for the last 2 or 3 days, and what a wonderful time I've had visiting this lovely city. The people I've met, the meals I've had, but I don't think anything surpasses the young people that I have been able to talk to in the last few days. I was at a high school yesterday, speaking at a high school with 100 to 150 children in the auditorium, and to be able to share with them stories about my father, stories about growing up as Ronald Reagan's son. The first time I would ever learn about the tax system in America would be as an 8-year-old child who simply wanted a larger allowance because he thought his father was cheap with only giving him $1 a week. And how his father, instead of saying to his son, yes, I'll give you more of an allowance, or no, I won't, decided to tell his 8-year-old son about the tax system in America, and how the government was taking 90 cents out of every dollar. And with the 10 cents that was left, he was taking care of his first wife, my mother, Jane Wyman, his new wife, Nancy, my sister, Maureen, his new daughter, Patty, the new ranch, the foreman, the horses, the cows. By the time we got to the ranch that day, I found myself offering back half my allowance to my father. My father would look at me and say, no, Michael, you don't have to give me back half your allowance, but if there's a president that's ever elected who gives me a tax break, I will in fact give you a larger allowance. And so I told these young high school students that it would take until 1960, when John F. Kennedy was president, to in fact give my father a tax break and move the tax from 90% down to 70%. And when it went down to 70%, my father raised my allowance from $1 to $5, staying true to his word to an 8-year-old child who now was in high school trying to figure out, is that really a lot more money at $5 a week? But he stayed true to his word and ultimately gave me the largest allowance boost I could ever have when he became president of the United States in 1980 and passed the largest tax cut in history in August of 1981, when he gave not only me, but everybody in the United States of America an increase in allowance by cutting the tax rate from 70% down to 28% and beginning, again, the energy of the industry in the nation to start building and growing the economy of the United States of America that, in fact, grown into a malaise with double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates, double-digit unemployment in the year preceding his presidency. It was wonderful to be able to share those stories with a bunch of high school students who have their future before them, and to think that they and the college students I talked to today are really the future of this country. They were born free, and they will carry freedom into the future for this country of Poland. What an awesome, awesome responsibility. To talk to the college students today and challenge them about the future, to challenge them that they have the responsibility to become engaged in today's Poland, to not just sit idly by and wait for someone else to do it for them, but to in fact become engaged and to get involved in the community. In fact, I told them about my father when he was governor of California and how he got people engaged just at the state level. I talked about welfare rolls and the fact that so many were on welfare in California when he was governor, and he decided to come up with an idea, a plan called Workfare, where he would ask people on welfare to in fact actually go to work, to clean up the parks, to help clean up the streets, to earn their welfare check. He had a mighty battle with the liberals in Sacramento, but ultimately my father won out as governor. And what happened was people began to work. They began to earn their welfare check. And like my father knew, they began to build self-esteem in their own lives, feeling better about themselves, stronger about themselves. What they would ultimately do would leave the welfare rolls, go out into society, and again become members of society by in fact getting jobs. It changed the dynamic of California. It put California into a surplus position instead of not having a surplus and running a deficit when he became governor, and grew such a surplus in the state of California that in fact at one time they had to come to him and say, Governor, what do we do with the surplus? What do we do with the extra money now sitting in Sacramento's bank? And my father said, we give it back to the people of the state of California. But there was no way to give it back. No governor had ever done that. So they had to find a way to deliver it back to the people of the state of California.